On BBC Three Counties Radio.
This is Roberto Perrone.
Good afternoon. Let's talk housing. David Cameron has launched the Conservatives election manifesto with a promise to extend the right to buy scheme. Have a listen to what he said.
1.3 million extra families, a whole generation given the security of a home of their own. You've worked hard, you've saved. That home you live in, it's yours to buy, yours to own. The dream of a property-owning democracy is alive, and we will help you fulfil it.
That's David Cameron. Now, as you would imagine, Ed Miliband didn't quite see it the same way.
I think this is a deceit by the Conservative Party today because they haven't found a way of funding it. They're not going to build the homes they need. They're not the party of working people. First, last and always, they're the party of the richest and most powerful in our society.
Well, let's get to grips with the story from our local perspective. Henry Price, a housing expert from Hertfordshire, joins me in the studio. Afternoon, Henry.
Good afternoon.
And Jonathan Davies is an economist and wealth manager, also from Hertfordshire. Jonathan, welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Roberto.
Gentlemen, I saw you both this morning on social media having a bit of a ding-dong. Where do you stand on this, Jonathan, this idea of the ability to give people a right to buy?
I have no problem with the concept of giving people the opportunity to buy property that they're living in. It's totally different to the original right to buy of, 30 years ago, because the average price then was about, 25 or 30,000 pounds. The average price now in Hertfordshire, in 3 counties, is 253, maybe 350,000. It's a different world, and it means people who get involved in it are going to take on masses of debt, which, if interest rates ever rise over the next 5 or 10 years, those people are toast.
Yeah, but they're getting 35% discount, and in the South East, that's not a bad deal, is it?
Well, I've just gone through the numbers. House prices have gone up, anything from 500, 800%. 35% doesn't come close to economic reality, given where we actually are with average incomes and the global economy.
Henry, how do you see this story today? I mean, this idea of giving people, or 1.3 million extra people, the right to buy, does that go any way to solving our housing crisis? Because we have got a crisis in this country.
Well, I think we do generally acknowledge that we are in the middle of a housing crisis across the UK and, of course, in 3 counties country. And there's a point that Jonathan is at pains to make very efficiently on a regular basis. The problem with right to buy and help to buy and all these other raft of coalition initiatives is that they tamper, tinker, fiddle with the open market. We have a way of sharing out a scarce resource which is not perfect and for which there should be some external assistance. But by and large, if I want to get hold of your property, 150, 200 years ago, I'd either have had to marry your daughter, invade your property and take it by force, or, as we do these days, part with hard-earned money. And that is the way that we work in this country. It seems to work pretty well. But as I say, I think Jonathan and I would be on the same page on this. It's fiddling with a system that would otherwise sort out exactly what should happen.
Because you both come at this from very different angles, Jonathan, but I think in essence you're actually in agreement on this.
I think to give credit where it's due, Henry is absolutely spot on that essentially what I call for is a return to free markets generally and specifically in the housing world, because if we had free markets, if for example we didn't bail out banks every time they went bust because of reckless lending, in other words, we had free markets and we let businesses go bust because they failed, then I can assure you the lending would fall, and as a result house prices would fall, and that is the objective that we actually want. Why? Because everyone talks about the poor under 35, under 40s. We need to help the young. We need to help the next generation.
We do, don't we?
Well, I can assure you the answer is not to build more housing. The answer is to ban bank bailouts. The answer is to get rid of Help to Buy, the previous one, which is still going, to not bring in Right to Buy number 2, get rid of all the interventions. House prices will fall. I can assure you young people Jonathan, will be dancing in the streets.
I'm not so sure about that. But where will they? Hang on, where will they live, Jonathan? Where will they? Our children, our grandchildren, where will they live?
Roberto, I have to say, I hear this argument or this debate, as it were, all the time, particularly from blokes and from presenters in the BBC.
Yeah, right.
The fact is there are 700,000 empty homes in England and Wales, according to council statistics. They don't come on the market because government intervention keeps house prices up. I tell you, get rid of the intervention, there'll be a flood of properties coming to the market. The answer to your question will be there will be loads of properties available to buy.
Henry, do you agree with him?
Meanwhile, back in the real world, I acknowledge everything that Jonathan says, and yes, there is, and it's important that we acknowledge that there is a huge proportion of the electorate who the main political parties are all trying to curry favour with, who do not think that building more homes, particularly new homes near them, is the answer. However, I was up in the northwest yesterday. I wasn't working for the BBC, Jonathan will be pleased to hear, so this is an unbiased, if such a thing were to exist, point of view. But I was in a terrace of houses that were being pushed over because there was no economic answer or justification for their existence. We do have, Jonathan's quite correct, we do have hundreds of thousands of empty properties, but by and large, those properties are in the wrong place and they're the wrong sort of houses. If you do want to try and solve the housing crisis, if you first of all acknowledge that there is one, then you have to look at how we provide and where we provide these new homes. My home village of Walken, just east of Stevenage, there are proposals there to build 93 new homes. It's been splashed across the Mercury in the comment, and we've talked about it on Three Counties. It is something that the local residents do not want.
A lot of people on Twitter are saying, yeah, it's all down to NIMBYs. They're everywhere. They don't want to build houses. That's part of the problem.
Well, I don't think we necessarily need to be disparaging about people who would like to continue to enjoy the atmosphere, the area, the countryside, the environment that they live in. If we live in a democracy, we have to recognise and respect the views of others. Now, this is not just some sort of tiny minority of people that don't want these new homes built where they are. It is, according to Ipsos Mori, in the last survey they did nationwide, this is nearly 50%, getting on for 50% of the electorate do not want, that whilst they recognise that we need new homes, they never want them built near them. And that's a problem we have to overcome, and it's only a problem that we can solve politically, I'm afraid.
One of the arguments I've put forward today is perhaps we don't need right-to-buy schemes. What we need is to build social housing. Council houses, I used to know them, of course. What's wrong with that, Jonathan? We build big new estates and offer them at a reduced rate for people to live and start their lives together.
The answer, Roberto, is not more socialism. It has never been the answer anywhere in the world at any time in history. The answer is more capitalism, free markets. And what I repeat, if we bring back capitalism and free markets into politics and into housing, if we get rid of help to buy, if we don't bring in right to buy, if we don't bail out banks because they've recklessly lent and therefore they've gone bust, if we let the market set interest rates rather than this artificial 0.5% base rate, I assure you there will be vast numbers of property available wherever people want them.
Well, hang on. Will that vast property, Jonathan, will vast property be available because people are being repossessed? When you say let capitalism decide, that's quite scary. Let rich people, let rich commercial bankers decide what the market does.
That's what they've been doing for the last 30 years. They've been lending whatever they want to lend, thus pushing up house prices, and they knew full well that they were going to cause the most almighty crash on earth, which they did in 2008. And what happened? We bailed them out. If instead we hadn't bailed them out, we would have had the reset. We would have had the house price crash that had been building.
Okay. Jonathan,
in 2008, and I'll tell you, we wouldn't have having this conversation now.
Well, I'm glad we are. Let me bring Henry back in. The housing... A lot of people suggested this after we spoke to a couple of economists earlier on, that we are still in a housing bubble, and it could still crash. Yes, it could crash. In the southeast, in the crossbeds, Hearts and Bucks, is that still a possibility?
Yes, it's still a very dangerous and very real possibility. At the end of the day, we have to remember that house prices, the thing that we are usually most exercised about, is not something that's predicated specifically on supply and demand. And Jonathan is quite correct to say that if we built 100,000 new homes in Three Counties country in the next year, it wouldn't solve the problem that most people have, and that is with high prices. If you want to solve high house prices, it's all about the availability of credit. We live in an environment of artificially low and relatively easy credit. One of the things that the Conservatives have not gone on to describe in their manifesto that they've launched today is that, in fact, the reality is that the vast majority of housing association tenants will not be able to afford, will not qualify for the mortgages they will need, even at the discounted prices that are going to be offered, to be able to purchase these properties. This is political propaganda. It's very important, it's very clever, and it gets us all talking about it, but at the end of the day, we have to solve a big problem for the next generation.
And how many houses do we need to build then?
Well, frankly, we knew if we built 50 houses in every village up and down the land, we'd still only build 1 million new homes. But as people were talking about earlier this morning, if you built on 0.5% of the very, very precious greenbelt that we all try and staunchly defend, that would actually provide the same number of properties. And as far as most people are concerned, it would solve the problem of where people are going to be able to rent and buy.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I just find it amazing that you've just heard two acknowledged individuals who know something about this market, who know something about these issues, who have said to you that the problem is lending, it's not about building. And your immediate question was, so how many do we need to build? We repeat, the problem is, it's not even the Tories or Labour, it's all of them. There isn't a political party in the UK which is giving us the actual solution to and the reason
there isn't, Jonathan, is because they would be unelectable. In this democracy...
Well, you say that, but Margaret Thatcher wasn't unelectable, and she brought back capitalism.
1979, she brought in right to buy. She was the architect of it. Even
I know. When house prices were £25,000 or £30,000, now they're £300,000.
Jonathan, hang on. Just to be clear, are we praising Margaret Thatcher or negating her at this point?
I'm praising her.
Even though she brought in right to buy originally?
That was 30 years ago when house prices were 25 or 30,000.
So it's not the principle you object to. It's not the principle you object to. It's the actual amounts that you object to, isn't it?
It's the fact that people will have to borrow vast amounts of money. I don't care they'll get a reduction, because the fact is the price is already massively bloated in the first place. So
that's where we differ. You are happy with right to buy. I, as a principle, am not. I think it's wrong, and it won't solve whatever the problem is, even if we could agree with it to start with.
Gentlemen, thank you. Jonathan, thank you. Henry, thank you. We've finished here for this particular conversation. I think we can carry on the argument on Twitter throughout the course of the evening. You can find me at Drive with Rob.